we have already transformed the way the world operates. And now I believe we have a chance to do it all again. To be the great explorers of the next era.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today with such an interesting set of panelists. So today we're going to discuss a very broad topic, which was not letting me sleep calmly during the last few months. I'm Zina Cole. I'm a partner out of New York office. For the last decade, I was working in the midst of network technology, and lately I've been also leading our IoT service line in North America. So what we wanted to discuss with all of you today, and we do encourage you to participate, so in case you feel that you really disagree or you really have a question even during the panel itself, please raise your hand loudly so that we can also bring you in. But what we are going to discuss today with our panelists would be, has the industry done enough for us to be excited about the next generation technology? And during this year, I've been interviewing a lot of different stakeholders across the industry very broadly to understand what are the expectations of the next G. And I have to be honest, it was a little bit all over the place. So today, we have such different views in the panel. So we have Javier Arenzana. He is the lead partner for a telecom sector in KPMG Spain, supporting clients in a variety of the topics. And prior to that, Javier worked with GSMA and Telefonica Group, holding various management roles. Then we have Dimitra Simeonidou, is a professor of University of Bristol in the UK, and the director of Smart Internet Lab and co-director of Bristol Digital Institute. So Dimitra is focusing on a variety of different topics, but end-to-end networking applications and social technological considerations for future generations. Then we have Michael Shashne. So Michael has been in the industry for over 25 years, and he will bring in a very interesting, compelling view on how we can actually put it together globally. So Michael is working with the largest operators, MVNOs, as a chief revenue officer for the enterprise sales at BICS. Basically, imagine that you need to roam all over the globe, so he knows everything about that. And then, last but not least, we have Steve Douglas, and he has been also in the industry for quite a bit, over 25 years, and he's the head of market strategy for the global test and measurement company Spirit Communications, an independent advisor to government and industry. So, as you can see, we have very different views So how do we test the technology today? What's in the future? Like how do we think of innovation? How do we actually bring it all together on a global level, which I believe is not easy task to do. And we have a very deep industrial understanding and kind of a lot of experience to look at it from different strategic angles as well. So thank you for joining us today. We're very excited to have you. So we have around a little bit less than 30 minutes, and what we were thinking to do is to start with where we are today. So let's step back and think whether, if you look back 5 to 7 years and our expectations, whether we achieved that state where we were hoping to be in 2024. So I think that's the kind of beginning. Then we will move into, okay, what do we need to do today in order for us to be more successful in upcoming years in near to the short to near term, to medium term, and then what's ahead of us. So we will strategize together and see, okay, we know probably that we're not at the perfect place today and we do need to work on some specific pieces, but let's be a little bit more visionaries and try to set the goal in front of us very broadly on how to be more successful in next generation network technology. So maybe I will start with Javier. Javier, let me ask you one very simple question. How do you think we're doing today? Very broadly. Let's say I would ask you a question 5, 7 years ago. How do you see us moving towards 24? Do you think we're meeting these expectations very broadly from the consumers, from the telco, from the OEM perspective, from the whole value chain? Where are we?
Okay, yes, hello. So I think the adoption of 5G is definitely following the classic hype curve for technology. There's been high expectations that were created about when the technology was starting to be deployed. All these use cases that were expected, so we spoke a lot about the opportunities that will happen and all the government investment programs that will push all this great phase of innovation. And now we are sort of in this disillusionment phase where we are expecting those cases to really come up, especially in the consumer world, I think. We're seeing some of the things already happening in the enterprise world, but the consumer definitely is lagging behind. So overall, I think with the expectations that we had, probably, it's fair to say 2-3 years late, I think we could be. Obviously, doesn't apply equally on all the markets. Fair to say that some of the East Asian markets, of course, are a bit further in some of the implementation of the 5G technologies. But overall, there's some delay. There's been a number of years that have influenced, for external factors, how the industry has been investing. Of course, we have had the pandemic, we have had the disruption of the supply chains, we have had the hike in the interest rates. All that has deterred appetite of investment in R&D and innovation. I think both in the telco industry itself, that also had to face the investment in FTTH during these last years. And at the same time, overall, in most of the sectors, that enterprises that were expected to implement and to invest into the implementation of initial technologies, not only of 5G, but also all the technologies that go around 5G, like robotics, like augmented reality, like sensoring, well, everything that needs to complement 5G to make the use cases. Everything has been delayed a little bit by the lack of investment in those sort of programs. So those were the external factors. Also, it's fair to say that the implementation of 5G has been different in the speed on the radio, which has been faster, and I think we are not so much behind. We are pretty much where we were expecting. Also, there were requests by the governments to meet some requirements from spectrum licensing that oblige the deployment phases of the radio, but also that it makes sense for the operators to deploy the radio because of the economics of transferring traffic to the new radio. So that has helped definitely to move into it. But the core is much more complex and definitely is lagging behind. Technologies that need to be implemented are much more difficult to take to a high scale, and that's basically where we are lagging behind, I think.
Thank you, Javier. So what I'm hearing is there's a range of different structural challenges which we faced, such as financial, but also in order to bring 5G benefits to life, you need to construct very complex use cases, which would require a higher number of players to come together in order to actually move that robotic arm at the end of the day. And it's much more than telco and a robotic arm producer. We all know the complex tech stack. Very well, thank you. Maybe my next question would be to Stephen. So I remember a lot of discussions around, like 5G will bring different level of the main KPIs, which we were solving for since decades with all of the generational kind of evolution. And there is increased kind of focus on latency and throughput, and the numbers were so scarily small or so scarily big. So, and I know that, Stephen, you are working a lot with testing that. So I'm very curious to learn what is truth versus reality when we go outside the lab?
Yeah, I mean, this is the perennial question that we unfortunately as an industry tend to set aspirational targets rather than commercially achievable KPIs. And that's really the fundamental issue, is that, you know, as a test company, we can see in the labs that yes, you can meet some of the metrics, but can you really scale them in a commercial network at a price point that a telco could afford to do? And what damage might you do to do that? And I think that's what happened with 5G. You know, we set targets, these aspirational targets on latency down to 1 millisecond on the air interface, throughput speeds. And the reality was there wasn't necessarily a market demand for any of those capabilities on day one. In fact, I would even argue there's a limited demand even at the moment. They're technically very challenging to be met. Yes, in some lab environments we can do it, but none of that scales into commercial deployment. And we run the absolute risk we're going to do the same again on 6G, because we are going to set aspirational targets built on those 5G aspirational targets. So I think it's more important for us now to focus back in and say, what is the reality of the commercial business case that we're trying to achieve? Now, let me give you an example. We work very closely with quite a number of large telcos who are engaging with the enterprise, and it was assumed that a large number of the enterprises needed these exceptionally low numbers. And the reality is, when they've started to engage, that's not the case. They're more interested, for example, in the latency side, it was actually the reliability of latency is more important than the low number. So it's trying to actually understand what the KPI metric is, and then actually the business case that we're trying to achieve with it. Otherwise, we run the risk again of setting aspirational targets, which will simply hold us back as an industry. And I really, really hope that we do not do this again for 6G. We really sensibly look at what should be the relevant KPIs that actually can be cost efficiently or effectively achieved by a telco.
Thank you. We'll certainly come back to the KPI discussion going forward, because I cannot imagine where would you need to go to beat all the promises of 5G already today with 6G. It becomes, to some extent, as you were saying, maybe unreasonable from the actual demand perspective on the larger scale. Thank you. So I think my next question would be to Michael. Michael, I find your job fascinating, interesting, challenging, and all of these things at the same time. So I know that you're focusing on providing kind of services across the globe. So basically, you need to rely on networks which are built at a different pace, by different companies. And I can imagine it probably is not the most cohesive kind of way of building these networks. So from your standpoint, and I understand probably for not all of the use cases you might necessarily need 5G, and maybe even previous generation is fine, but from your experience, what is the biggest challenges when you, and whether my hypothesis is correct that it's not a cohesive experience all over the globe. How are you looking at that?
Yeah, so if we look at the global perspective, I mean, although 5G has been developed 7 years ago, and we talk about 6G already, now, well, only a third of the mobile operators have launched actually 5G. And if you look at also 5G standalone or 5G advanced, actually only 50 operators have implemented it in their domestic market. So the situation is even, let's say, worse, I would say, when it comes to roaming, where 5G roaming is only available in 100 countries, only half of the world. And if you talk about 5G advanced or 5G SA roaming, only a handful has launched 5G SA roaming. So we have a lot to do in order to provide really a consistent user experience, I mean, for both consumer but also IoT devices that wants to connect anywhere in the world. So why is that? So actually, you have a lot of technical but also commercial challenge in enabling roaming for 5G with all the, let's say, the different services that comes along with it, 5G standalone, NB-IoT, you have also local breakout. So for each of those services, you need to have a bilateral agreement between two mobile operators to agree, to implement it, to be tested, monitored, to ensure also that there is high quality, security, anti-fraud measure, and make sure that this is really working 100% of the time. And then on the commercial side, you need to have also the right business model in place, the right billing ecosystem as well, in order to drive usage and, of course, profitability that we all look for. So, I mean, there is a lot really to be done going forward. But, I mean, the good thing is that there are solutions, of course, to accelerate this. You need to focus, of course, on establishing this all brand new 5G advanced and even 6G at some point of time roaming world. And I mean, there is user demand for sure. So we are really seeing strong growth when it comes to 5G roaming with triple digit year over year. But we really need to work and collaborate all together with this mobile ecosystem to make it even better and future-proof.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Let's actually use what you said as a little bit of a pivot. What can we do in order to make more use of the value 5G is creating today, even before we actually switch the gears to the next generation? And Dimitra, let me ask your perspective. As you are bringing a lot of research into the world today and in the future, how are you thinking of prioritizing what you're working on? Because I know that you are leading a lot of the research in the UK, and you are trying to get much broader perspective. How do you think of where to spend dollars in innovation? To me, it's a tricky question.
Well, how to spend dollars in research or pounds in research in my case.
Even more so.
Right. So from an academic perspective, really 5G has been done and dusted. So there is still work going on, but we don't actually brand it anymore 5G. So if I see my colleagues around the world, yes, there is still work going into radio, which traditional, I would say, is in the category of 5G advanced radio, but the focus going on things, how I can make my radio more energy efficient. For instance, work on power amplifiers. Then there is work that is going on in what we call the compute continuum, so edge to cloud. And you know, when we are looking at the future of telcos or the present of telcos, then actually telco cloud is very important, edge compute is very important. So there is a need from the academic community actually to look at these topics. Evolution of architectures, disaggregation, for instance, and how this disaggregation is going to look like, how far we are going to get into the concept of edge. That's another big question. Actually, what excites me more as a researcher is actually the topics around open architectures. And of course, we started with Open RAN, and now we go to open networks. And for me, the question is, if we are looking at that mobile networks ecosystem, how we can make it a playground for innovation, or a playground for everybody to play, the big and the smaller ones. And there are a lot of inherent technical challenges in making this happen. These technical challenges, they have to do with convergence, with optimization. So there is work in academia that is going, and in the last one, I put my dollars on because it's important. We need to grow this ecosystem beyond of the companies that dominate it at the moment and open up a place for new companies to innovate. So that is where academic research is happening, at least in the UK.
Thank you. To me, I think it's a quite interesting view from academia, because I was always thinking you just focus on something undoable looking into the future. But what I'm hearing is...
We do. We do
Yes.
look into the
No,
future.
no, no. What I mean is in a very positive way. But actually, looking at what's happening today, you're also thinking how to make it more compelling for more players to participate. So it's not becoming prohibitively expensive for new players to actually come in.
Yes, but if you think the biggest problems and the biggest challenges, they come as you increase heterogeneity and complexity into your network. And as we are looking at the future, actually heterogeneity is not come only with multi-technologies, comes with multi-players, service providers versus or with, for instance, hyperscalers. How does this going to look like?
Yeah.
And exactly how we converge, how we orchestrate, what this global ecosystem
Yeah.
of providing connectivity is going to look like. Now there are a lot of open academic questions and research questions there, and really that's not 5G that would lead us into the future. I want to name it 6G or not, that's evolution.
Yep. Thank you, Dimitra. So that's the technological view then. So there is a quite versatile number of technological aspects which we still need to solve, and there is an ecosystem which needs to come together for this to make into the real life. Let's switch the gears to a commercial side of the things, because yes, building the right network for the use cases which will actually have demand is one thing, but Javier, let me ask the question on what can be done, let's say better, if I may be that blunt, from the B2C and B2B perspective today by telcos, if you have a view there.
Sure. Clearly at this moment, the commercial opportunity, the clearer commercial opportunity for telcos is in the enterprise segment. The challenge of bringing the 5G promise at scale in the public network with all the investment and the technologies, as we mentioned, makes it very difficult to bring it globally to the B2C, etc. But we can bring, and this is what is happening, we can bring 5G with at least most of its functionality with specific CapEx, only to specific locations on campus to meet the use cases in several industries where there are clear opportunities of digital transformation that 5G is helping to happen. And that's where, at this moment, the innovation and the implementation of the technology is taking place. So really focus on the B2B segment. The challenge there is that enterprises require turnkey solutions that are complete, that are tested, that work. They want to have a provider or a set of providers that come together and mix everything that comes in a solution: software, connectivity, robotics, edge, digital twins, everything together. They just want to be sure it works. So you need to, as a telco, you need to create on your commercial enterprise, on your commercial department enterprise segment, the ability to bring together this ecosystem of partners to come up with solutions that really work for your enterprises. And you need to do it in a manner that is client by client sales. So it's much more about consultative sales ability to the enterprises, understanding what's the business, where they are, what's the transformation plans, what's the value that they're going to create, and how to sell internally that case. So you need to transform the skills internally in your organization and align how you measure people, how you upskill the people, in order to become a much more consultative sell type of organization. So that's, I think, where telcos need to put the focus today.
So what I'm hearing is focus on B2B, learn to work with enterprises because their solutions are so different from whatever you were selling before to consumers. You need to understand them well. You need to explain them why do you need kind of a specific solution through consultative approach and help them understand how to utilize this technology and come with end-to-end solution to your customers so that they don't need to hassle with all of the 20 subcontractors to, again, I will use my robotic arm thing to move. Yes? Thank you. Let's try to pivot towards the future as we have not too much time left. And let me ask a question to Steven. Steven, you understand well, what's the reality versus marketing and the technological reality, right? In looking ahead, how do you think of the transition, evolution, revolution, whatever it is between 5G, 5G advanced or 6G? What do you think the path forward is?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I would say from the start, I think the question we really need to ask ourselves, do we really even need 6G in a current generational 10-year format? I'm not convinced of that. I mean, if you look at telcos today, most of them, they're there to make profit. They need to be competitive in the market, and competitive nature is about agility. If you're having a 10-year cycle, that doesn't really scream of agility in a modern market. And we've got an opportunity with 5G. As Michael correctly said, there's only about 55 operators who have now launched 5G standalone. Most of those are limited scale releases. Very few operators are even software upgraded to release 16 of the standards yet, so they've got 17 to come, which brings in a lot of features for enterprise. The release 18 standards for 5G Advanced only get frozen this year. It'll take another 12 to 18 months before you'll really see software upgrades or even the hardware that might be required around that. And you're probably going to have 2 more major releases before whatever the 6G system is. So this sets the opportunity for us actually to introduce that agility, allow operators to create upgrade paths in a more logical way when they need to bring new feature sets in. So if you look at what is already happening today around, say, non-terrestrial networks, the capabilities have already started. Why should we hold off for a complete 3-dimensional network until 6G? Why not, as part of the evolutionary pathway, we extend that, bring direct-to-device connectivity in, expand it further? It's similar to what we're doing with augmented reality and XR. We're bringing more and more capabilities into 5G Advanced that are going to support that. Things like candidates which are in the 6G system, like wireless sensing, is already going to be brought into release 19 as a study item. Why would we not want to offer or bring that in release maybe 20 before 6G if an operator has a business case for that? So I think this is the mindset change. I think we've got an opportunity here with 5G to actually demonstrate this infant technology. And I want to really hard, it is still in its infancy. 5G non-standalone is not 5G. 5G standalone is true 5G. Once we get there, then it's about unlocking the value over the next 10 years. Then we'll see what the 6G system is. And I think it's aligning it then to the operator's business case. And the good news is I really see, from a lot of the test work we do, we can see a lot of the operators, their strategies are very much about this. They do not want a large-scale commercial forklift upgrade. They want an evolution, a smooth evolution into whatever that next generation is. And maybe the 6G system is more about spectrum and novel technologies, which Dimitra has talked about, than a lot of these capabilities we should be introducing now.
Thank you. I'm really curious how Michael gonna solve that, because even if you look at the today's landscape, you have to deal with such inconsistent network deployment with like everywhere. And then given that I guess this evolution will be happening at a very different pace across the different regions, how are you going to deal with that? In 30 seconds, if you may.
30 seconds. So first of all, I mean, mobile operator needs to keep on investing on 5G, especially 5G standalone. They need to make sure that their network is also reachable from consumer, from any place in the world, from IoT devices, from also application, because 5G is definitely pushing let's say, the boundaries further between the network and the software, so you can unlock really lots of new values, powered also by AI, powered by also, I mean, lots of brand new dynamic application. So we are really seeing the border fading away between also the digital world and the real world. And really to unlock the value, you need to have really the right collaboration in the whole digital ecosystem. So this is really the key, really bridging mobile operator with system integrator, hyperscalers, public clouds, also private networks, IoT solution providers, equipment manufacturers, in order really to provide the right user experience that, I mean, consumer, IoT manufacturers or IoT devices and application are looking forward. So this is really a lot of work to be done by actually everyone coming in MWC.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. And I think my last question would be to Dimitra, because I would really love to kind of look together to the future. And it's going to be a twofold question. One of them is, given everything what we heard and the kind of different perspectives on what is actually important for different stakeholders, how do you think broadly of KPIs for what good is, and what are actually these KPIs very broadly? And then the next one is, I couldn't help but wonder, given the pace of the disruption which is happening, look at AI and how quickly everything is changing. Do you think telco industry will be capable of pacing at the same speed in order to catch up and get all of the benefits across? I know that it's really two different parts, but I think these are the two fundamental things which we need to think of going into the future.
I have to make sure I remember this. So KPIs, I stopped actually caring about KPIs some time ago. You know, the thing is that speed, low latency, how many devices I connect to my network is so intrinsic to our industry. In my opinion, if we want really to succeed, is really to focus on values, and the values that we are bringing, for instance, to our industry, to other industries, and to society. For instance, instead of talking about speed, let's talk about availability, reliability, reach. When we are talking about security, let's also talk about privacy and trust. And actually, let's focus on how we can deliver sustainability against energy consumption of our sector, but also on the sectors that we are supporting. So the KPI discussion needs to change from actually performance to values, and then we'll start talking widely. Now, in terms of disruption, yes, AI, everybody's talking about AI in this conference. And AI, we know that is something that is taking us by a storm. Is that actually something that we can handle as a highly regulated industry? Release 20 and Release 21, Gen AI is going to be by Release 20, you know, all over our industry, if it makes sense. So how actually regulation and fast-moving technologies. So that is one of the problems that we are looking forward. The other thing is we really need to do proper horizon scoping. There is something else that is happening that's called quantum, and I don't have time to talk about this, that actually could be massively disruptive. And I'm not sure we are even thinking about this at the moment. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dimitra. I think it's a very nice way to conclude our session today. It was just a teaser. I wish we could unpack all of that. We have such interesting views from our speakers. Thank you very much for being here with us. Thank you for attending. We hope that was helpful, interesting. Please feel free to catch us if you have any questions on the side. Thank you.